Well, it's so nice to speak with you guys. Did
Yeah.
you guys go to Indiana?
No, we went to Butler.
Butler.
You went to
Yeah.
Butler. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you went to IU, right?
Yeah, I went to IU.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mhm.
Are you from
Mhm.
here originally?
I'm from New York.
Okay.
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 I'm from here. I went out to Indiana and I came back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, but it was so fun. I loved it. And it was such a great experience in my life. I have family in Detroit, so
Okay.
I have like those I have Midwest connections.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've gotten
Yeah.
pretty much a taste of everything. The same because you were in the Midwest and you went to California.
Yeah,
We'll get into it
exactly.
more, but yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, no, what will, and just, I know we talked about this before, Dolly, on our call, but yeah, what we'll do is like for this interview, once we're done with everything, Colin and I will go back and attach like a 3-minute intro onto the beginning and just kind of we'll recap our thoughts on it, summarize everything, and then we'll attach that at the beginning and then send you the audio. And then we'll also send you like show notes about what we talked about at each time interval, description, and then we'll send that all to you. And then once you approve that and you give us the green light, we'll then release on like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, our website. So yeah.
Awesome. And I'll repost too. So
Cool.
just send me the links once they're live.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And if there's anything you want us to plug into our show notes, like any links out or anything, let us know.
Yeah. I'll let you know.
Yeah.
We can do that for sure.
And anything goes, so you can say whatever you want.
Yeah, we don't have no restrictions.
I know the New Yorker's got a mouth.
I will. Don't worry. I'm gonna keep it clean, but
you don't have to.
Maybe I won't.
I don't most of the time.
Okay.
But yeah, it's been a while since I was in New York, but Midwesterners, we're pretty nice over here.
Oh, yeah. Are you guys from Indiana?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where? What part?
Northern Indiana. It's like a town called Warsaw, and then went to school at Butler in Indianapolis, and pretty much lived here ever since I graduated. So
cool.
Yeah,
nice.
You probably heard of the region, like Chicago, like by the region. When you were at IU, So I'm as far northwest Indiana you can go without crossing the border.
Okay.
So I went to high school in Chicago actually. I commuted every day. Yeah, so I was that close. It was about an hour. Yep.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Right. I was always very confused. Like I never understood. I didn't realize like how South Indiana was, and like as a state, like it's so close. And especially like I thought it was more north, but then I like realized that Louisville was only like 3 hours away. Or like less. And Nashville. And Nashville was close to IU, to Bloomington. So Bloomington, I guess specifically, was so south. But then like, there were people I remember being like, yeah, I'm like closer to Chicago than I am to school. So I learned a lot. Geographically.
Right. And in the wintertime, like you don't really need to travel that far south before like you get into the warm regular temperatures. So that's nice. Yeah.
I was really surprised by that. I was like expecting to go to like Chicago, Lakeview, cold school, but it was cold, but still.
It's still cold.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, please take it away. Tell me what
just tell you what to do. Got it.
Yes, please.
So we always like to just ask our guests like how we got here. So you can start wherever you want. How did you get where we're at today? You can start at school. You can start before that. You know, what drove you to start your businesses, your talk show? Like, where did it all begin for Dolly?
Okay. So I think that the story really begins at Indiana University.
Okay.
Well, I guess like just before that, even I've always been very like, I'm very, very entrepreneurial and like kind of a hustler. Like that's just my spirit. I've always been that way. And I like in high school had like little side businesses that I would kind of have. And I had jobs throughout high school, and I was just like always really interested in like learning a lot and doing stuff to learn, because that's how I learn. I just by doing. So, and then when I got to school, I was very involved on campus. I went to Indiana University in Bloomington, and I just from the second I got there, I got involved. Like I ran for president of, of my dorm, and I signed up for tons of, like, there's this thing in Indiana called IU Dance Marathon that's really big. And I did that my freshman year, which is like not so typical. And I then joined a sorority and became the president of my sorority. So it was always just like, that's just my energy and my spirit. And then when I was a junior, I think at Indiana, I was applying for internships at entertainment, like television companies. I really wanted to work in TV. And I was applying for this internship at Comedy Central. And every time I'd come home, because I'm from New York, and every time I would come home, I would go and I would meet with somebody from Comedy Central and like have a very casual kind of meeting. But I was like, oh, I'm gonna get this internship, right? Like this is for sure gonna happen. Like I've met this guy multiple times on the phone, whatever. Anyway, like it's almost summer and I don't get the internship. And I say to him, what? Like, why didn't I get the internship? And he's like, well, you don't have enough TV experience. And I'm like, well, how am I supposed to get the TV experience if I can't get the internship?
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this is crazy. This was my sophomore year. So going into college or junior year. So then I'm like, okay, I have to take matters into my own hands. Like I'm starting my own TV show because I don't know how else I'm supposed to do this. So I come back to school that I think as a junior, I don't know if I'm getting the date. It might've been whatever. It's not freshman year.
Yeah. You're in
And
college. You've never been in TV.
I'm
You're
in college.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm like, how does a 19-year-old have TV experience? So I come back to school and I'm like, all right, I'm starting my own TV show. Like, I don't know how else I'm supposed to do this. So I go to the IU Student TV Network and I'm like, hey, you guys, like, I want to have a TV show. I want to have a comedic talk show where I do like man on the street kind of style interviewing students around campus. And this is like 2011, 2012 at this point. So they're like, great. Okay. And then I like put together a pitch. They're like, we love it. Go make it. I'm like, what do you mean go make it? They're like, go make it. And I'm like, okay, I don't know how to do any of this, but I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I call the show Hello Dolly and I make a mic for myself. I like put I have a logo and I put my logo on it. And then I find somebody, I was in the telecommunications school, which is now called the media school at Indiana. And I like put, like those like tear tabs, like looking for a babysitter or like hiring
like on a light post or something.
A model. Right. Like for hire posters. So I put one of those and like the school board being like, I'm looking for someone to film. So I found somebody and they carried a camera, like a real video camera around and like filmed me around campus with this microphone interviewing students on campus. And then I was like, all right, well, now I have to edit it. So it was me literally in the computer labs teaching myself how to use Final Cut Pro and Adobe Premiere. And it was great because we had access to those programs in the telecom school. So I was able to do that. And it was truly like trial and error, messing up, Google searching, having a friend of a friend help me, like teach me, just like sitting there watching him into like the wee hours of the night, like 4 a.m.,
in the trenches.
Yeah.
Truly like in the studio. Right.
Yeah.
So we were doing that. And then I had my first episode and it was so exciting. And they were putting the student TV network puts the show on in the dorms. And I was like, this is so lame. Like nobody watches the TV in the dorms. And like people that weren't freshmen didn't even have access to it. And they didn't live in the dorms. So after you're a freshman, you don't even live in the dorms typically. So I was like, no one's going to see this. Like, this is so dumb. Wait a second. The internet, like, wait, I'm putting this on YouTube. So I put the file up on YouTube and I'm like, I need to like, should I open a Facebook page? Like Instagram wasn't even a thing yet. So I open a Facebook page and I'm like, I put the link to the YouTube on the Facebook page and I'm like, hey guys, like I'm dropping the link at 8 p.m. on Tuesday, like send me selfies watching it. And I started to, gain followers on Facebook. And this was like the first time that I did this without even realizing, like driving audiences to content using social media. And I then after that, like, it was so fun. It was a success. It was up on the internet and it became a thing on campus. And then I started to like, then Instagram happened. So I started to chalk around campus being like, download Instagram, follow at Hello Dolly.
Nice.
And it became this thing, but like very like grassroots, you know, like really on the field doing the thing. And then I had an Instagram, whatever. And then the next year I did it again. And I had like friends of mine who were correspondents on the show. And it became a thing on campus, which was really fun. And people would recognize me and want to be in it and whatever. So then when I graduated, I was like, all right, I'm doing this TV thing. Like, I now have proof of concept that this is what I want to do. And I graduated and I got a job at like a production company. It was freelance. I was there for a second. I left. I then worked at an ad agency. And then I worked at WME, William Morris Endeavor. Do you know what that is? The talent agency? No. So have you ever seen the show Entourage on HBO?
Entourage.
So that is WME. That is Ari Gold is based on Ari Manuel of WME. And it really is like that. You're in the mail room. So you're literally sorting mail for the agents. And then like Lloyd, he's the assistant and all the agents have assistants. And you're like you're trying to work your way to the top, right? Like in Hollywood, really learning who's who. And I really like, I explain it as like this entertainment grad school kind of like, it's like young kids, they are getting paid $10 an hour and they are worked to the bone. And you are literally sorting mail for celebrities, agents. You're seeing like the legal, like all of that legal documents coming through, bills, all of that. And so you're really learning a lot just by being there. And you're meeting a lot of peers. So other industry people, right, who come up with you from the mailroom. So like people that I've been in the mailroom with are like development executives now and like that sort of thing. So once I was at WME, it was crazy because when I was in college, I had reached out to this guy who worked at Bravo at the time, and he was running social at Bravo. And I was like, oh my God, like I love the Real Housewives. Like I want to work at Bravo and run social media. That sounds so fun. And we had just connected on LinkedIn and he went to Wisconsin. So we had that like, you know, Midwest connection, and he didn't have a job, but we stayed in touch. And like every time I came home, I would go and get a coffee with him at Rockefeller Center and whatever. We became like contacts. So fast forward after college, when I was working at WME, I got an email from him out of the blue. He had moved over to HBO and he was doing social for Game of Thrones at HBO. And he was like, he sent me an email and he's like, hey, you know, you're the first person I thought of. We're finally hiring somebody on my team. Do you want to come do this? And I'm like, yeah, are you kidding? Cool. Like, great. Get me out of the mailroom. So I leave the mailroom and I go to HBO. And I was there for about 4 years where I was doing running social for Game of Thrones, Westworld, and High Maintenance, Girls, one season of Girls, and different shows kind of in between the seasons of Game of Thrones and Westworld. And I learned that was like my first big job and really learning a lot about social media as like through strategy and like really doing it for a huge, huge account and brand.
That's amazing. That's amazing that you took like no experience and then you built your own proof of concept. You built your own quote unquote resume with your show at IU, and that's practical experience, and that's kind of what got your foot in the door. So
I
that's
really
awesome
appreciate that. And it's, you know, I would always send him like the links, like, hey, new episode. I just did a new episode. So it was always very top of mind for him. Right. And like, he saw like, she's not only saying that she wants it out, but she's like doing the thing. Right. She's making the show. She's promoting it on social media. And I always say that to people, like, it's like, you could talk about what it is that you want to do, just do it. Because once you do it, you can like, you really learn a lot. Like I learned so much I know how to edit video and how to use sound equipment and how to do all of that. Yeah. And then I have all this like industry experience having worked in the mailroom. So I know that like kind of that background info to then apply to like whatever it is that I wanted to do next.
Right.
But I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And when I think of that, the first thing I think of is like, I don't know if you've seen Humans of New York or sometimes they do So like, was that kind of how it was at IU? Like what types of questions would you ask students? Like, what did the content look like? What was kind of the mission? Because I want to unpack that a little bit too, because I think that's really cool that you did that. So I want to talk more about that too.
Sure.
We'll go along the line, but I just want to unpack that a little bit more.
Yeah. So like my first episode, Indiana has this football team that is not a big deal. Everyone's really into the everyone's really into the basketball. And like,
that's how Butler is. We get it.
Honestly, I don't know anything about sports. So is it the same at Butler?
Same thing. Yeah. Butler football, you don't write home about it.
Right. Okay. So Indiana football is like no big thing, but the tailgates are huge, right? Like everyone goes to the tailgates, but no one goes to the game. So like my first episode, I went around campus and I asked people like, who's your favorite IU football player? And nobody could answer it. Like it was just hysterical. And then I found football players on campus and like asked them. And like, so it was like stuff like that.
Yeah, that's
cool.
Okay, good. Just
hey, did you hear no one knew about your name?
yeah, exactly.
You're no one's favorite player. What do you think about that?
Exactly. I know. So it was stuff like that. But then like an episode, like we went into the stadium and like I had a how-to correspondent, which was a friend of mine, Dylan, who like took people behind the scenes and we like showed the gym where they were all working out and we went on the field. So like just stuff like that.
Just like campus life, college life, pretty much anything that falls under that umbrella. Yeah.
Exactly.
And people love that, like a day in the life of whether it's an athlete or like people love the day in the life videos.
Yeah.
Totally.
Like, that's what Gary Vee lives on.
Yeah.
It's just
that's true.
Day in the life, pretty much.
Yeah. Right. And I use a huge campus. Like it feels like its own city in itself. So I'm sure like having a show like that kind of builds like a sense of community and makes people feel a little more interconnected. That's such a big school.
And then my friend Abby, who's still one of my best friends to this day, she was the fashion correspondent and she just like went up to people at tailgates and was like, tell us about what you're wearing. And it was so like silly because everyone was drunk and everyone looked absolutely crazy. And it was really fun. It was just fun.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to get back to HBO too, but I also want to ask you, when college ended, was this the type of thing where like, did this feel like your own personal show brand? Was it like attached to the IU media?
No.
And did you want to like continue it and intend to continue it after college?
Yes.
Okay.
So it was like fully my thing. Like I didn't even talk to the student TV network anymore. Like it became my own thing. And it became like very much part of my identity. And so then when I moved to New York, I started to do it in New York City. So I would I still had my mic and I bought a camera and I would have a friend who would come around with me around New York City. And I would like, interview people about dating in like Washington Square Park or like asking people I did like outside the Tiffany store on Fifth Avenue. Like, why do you love this person? It was like a Valentine's Day episode. So like, tell me a haiku, a love haiku, like stuff like that. And it's just so interesting because this was, before 2015 even. So it's like now this is all over TikTok and it's like such a thing. And it's just like, I didn't have that platform that these kids are now doing, that they now have. So it's just like funny to see like having done it and like doing it on very small scale because there's no virality. It's kind of the same way that TikTok is. But I keep thinking about like, I should just cut those up for TikTok and like put them up on TikTok.
I was going to ask if you have a TikTok for it.
I don't. And I'm just like, frankly, like I'm too tired to do it now. Like I'm like older and I'm just like, oh, I don't want to do it anymore. But I have so much content that I just like, it just wasn't the time in history to put it out, Then I moved to Los Angeles and we'll get into that in 2019. And I did it in Los Angeles. I made episodes out in LA and it was like, so it's so fun. So
And like, the initial advice that you got may have been the best advice when they said, go build it. Like, don't like lean on us. Like the fact that they told you to do that made you and forced you to learn new skills, video editing, everything that gave you the foundation. So
absolutely. And it's really interesting too, is like, I remember I always had like these great meetings with people. Like it would be these different, execs that different TV networks or wherever, just being like, how can I get a job here? How can I get a job here? And they always said to me, like, just keep doing what you're doing, keep doing what you're doing. And I always got so frustrated by that response, because I was like, what do you mean? Like, how long do I have to do this? Like,
Right.
like I've done it. Like, here, I've shown you. But it's like funny the way the world works. It's like, if you keep pushing something, like, it does work out eventually. It's just like, you have to be patient.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and like during the times when you don't feel like pushing anymore, you got to remind yourself, like, this is where most people stop and quit. It's really just kind of a survival of the fittest type of thing, but also a
100%.
passion. Yeah. Like,
exactly.
fueled by passion. So,
And I got to imagine some of those people at those bigger companies wanted to see if you were really into it. Like that, like you are a doer, but they probably didn't know you from Adam. So it's like, okay, this girl just wants to work for, you know, HBO, whatever, Bravo. And they probably wanted to see, like, what can she do in the first place?
Totally.
And
like,
it
I
proved
think
to you, like, that you really loved it enough to do it on your own. When someone said, go do it, like, fuck it. Okay. I will.
Totally. Like, there's a distinction between like saying you want to do something and doing the thing. And that can only be shown, not told.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, mailroom and then HBO. So what were you feeling going into HBO? Were you nervous? Like, what was kind of your mindset going into that? Like you said, that first legit experience.
I remember my first day, and I was like, oh my God, this is so exciting. Like, this is a real job. And like, this is like an adult job. And I was like, this is so cool. Like, I'm just so excited to learn. Like, I'm really just a very curious person. So like, I just love to learn from other people and to like soak it all in. So I really didn't know what to expect. And I was like, I guess I can do this. Like, it's very like imposter syndrome all the time, but I realized that I really could do it.
Yeah.
But it was just really exciting and kind of very unknown what was going to happen. And it like turned into this really big and exciting chapter of my life that was such a moment in like cultural zeitgeisty time.
Yeah. Did you have a pretty good idea of what you would be doing in that role? Like, do you remember like what your job title was you got hired for, or was it kind of like an open creative role?
Yeah, my title when I started was coordinator, like digital and social media coordinator. So I was working for that guy who I had met on LinkedIn. His name is Michael Hoffman, and he was my boss. And it was basically like, I think I was doing a lot of like copywriting for tweets and Facebook posts, and even like capturing images, photos, photography for our Twitter and for our Instagram. And it's funny to see how social media as an industry has changed over the like even the last, I don't know, 6 years, because all of that stuff was very scrappy and in-house at the time. And now there are like agencies that do that you can hire, who have these very professional, very experienced professionals who do these things. So but at the time, like I said, it was like me literally writing tweets for Game of Thrones. And like, I don't think they're doing that anymore. They're probably hiring, and most networks are hiring agencies to be doing like that kind of nitty gritty social stuff. Yeah. But I got in at a really cool time because I had the opportunity to do that stuff. And I also like, it's interesting because social media is such a new industry, and people who were like VPs of social media, I don't know, even 5 years ago, like never were coordinators of social media. Like they were just marketing people who didn't really have who didn't grow up with social, and like who didn't, have that super like those low level jobs. So it's interesting, like it'll be really interesting to see what happens the next 5 years, where like people who are in VP positions, it's the first time that they will have been those very low level positions, and they'll really know how to use social in a way that people have never kind of had that experience before.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you see some of that at HBO too? Like, were there people above you where they really didn't know the lay of the land like you did?
I mean, I think you know, when you're running social, especially when you're like a community manager or like really being the one who's interacting with the community every day and with the followers, like there's no substitute for that. Like you can't replicate what that learning is like. Like no one is closer to it than your community manager. And you can be the CMO, the VP of social, and like you don't have as good a grasp on what's really happening unless you're in the trenches doing it yourself.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And from that experience itself, like what are some of the biggest tools, knowledge that you took that allowed you to continue to be successful after that? Because you've done a lot of different things, but it sounds like creating content, telling like brand storytelling, like
yes.
What are the things that you took from like HBO that gave you that foundation going forward after HBO?
So I really think that kind of the experience at HBO solidified to me that there is a skill when it comes to digital storytelling. And that's kind of been like the through line through all my work to this day, even though I'm not necessarily working at like a TV network anymore, but it's all about how do you tell stories online in a digital, on a digital medium. So even like, you know, when I was doing it in college, like I was doing it without even realizing that I was doing it. And I was telling these stories in these short web series videos. And then it turned into short social content that I was posting. And then it turned into a job at HBO where I was creating content and managing social for one of the largest like TV brands in the world. And then it just reaffirmed to me, like, there's so much that you can do when you look at things through a lens of storytelling. And I think that my background in entertainment really helps me and supports that. Like, so when I was at HBO with Michael Hoffman, who was my boss, who I mentioned, I had this idea where I was like, hey, you know, and I'm always on social media. So I'm always using it. And I always think that is like the best way to learn about it is if you do it yourself. But this is like Snapchat era of history when I'm like on Snapchat all the time. It's 2016. And I was at a friend's apartment in New York City. And I was, you know, they had this incredible apartment. Like they had a backyard, they had a washer dryer, they had brand new appliances in the kitchen. And like, that's unheard of in New York City. Right. And like, these boys were paying like, I don't know, $1,200 each. I was like, this is crazy. Like, this does not exist. So I put it on my Snapchat and I started doing like a video tour. And I'm like, you know, like, here's the kitchen. Oh my God, there's a washer dryer. They have a backyard. And I posted it as a story on my Snapchat. And I had people sharing it with friends. And I had people responding to me being like, oh my God, where is this place? And where do I sign a lease? And I had this kind of like insight epiphany of like, whoa, why is no one doing this? I'm going to do this. So then I went to Michael and I said, Michael, I have this idea. It's a Snapchat account for real estate agents to show off their listings in New York City. And we could get young people to, you know, DM the agents that day and be like, I want to rent your apartment. So I was like, okay, this is a business. So then I told Michael about it. He's like, this is genius. I want to do this with you. Like, let's do it. So we started this company called Snaplistings, which was exactly what I just described. It was this Snapchat account where we became like these casting agents almost and found these young, digitally native, big personality, young agents in New York City who would come onto the account. We'd give them the password and they became like our correspondents who would show off their apartment rentals or listings like to sell to our audience. And we built this audience and we would like, it was really fun. Like at the time, this was 2016, like real estate marketing was very stale and had never been disrupted. So
people didn't really know how to use it that well at that point.
I mean, it was just wide angle lens photography of apartments. And like, it was very manipulated photography. Like you couldn't really get a sense of what these apartments looked like. And especially in a place like New York City where, you know, apartments go fast and there's also like there's a real estate porn kind of component too of like, you want to see these like very luxurious kind of apartments that people don't get access to. So we started showing those on the account as well. And it was really fun because our agents would show, it was very casual. Like our agents would like stand on a kitchen island to like show the height of the ceiling, and like would jump off of it to show like how big the apartment was, right? Like these weren't photographs that you'd have to like go in person and really see. You could get a sense of it from the video.
Yeah.
But again, like it was like, how do we tell these stories with a beginning, a middle, and end on Snapchat to actually like move apartments in New York? And it worked, which was crazy because then the company ended up getting acquired in 2017 by a digital marketing agency who does real estate, like real estate marketing. They're based in Australia. They wanted to start something in New York. They took over our company, and now there's a company called Snaplistings in New York, which I'm the co-founder of.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's cool.
That's so cool. And you guys started this like you left HBO to start this? Where does it fit on that timeline? This was like our
night job.
That's
this
cool.
was like it was like Game of Thrones by day and Snaplistings by night.
At the same time. I love that. Hey, you weren't kidding when you said you're a hustler.
Yeah.
You weren't kidding.
We're just doing it, right? It was so fun. And like we got an Adweek article like when we first started it. We were like, this is crazy. Like, you know, 1 week they're writing about Game of Thrones, and then like the next week, like it's about us and about the social media thing that we started. And we just like couldn't believe that, you know, like it was like our little night project, and it was very disruptive to the real estate industry. And then the New York Post wrote something about it, and CNBC. And it's funny because now in a post-COVID world, like the only way to show property, especially in New York, I can imagine everywhere, is through video tours. And we're like, we invented that, and like we did it, and it's so cool to see that like it caught on.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's interesting because I remember before I started my business, my career coaching business, I ran the marketing for a property management company, and I was the marketing coordinator. And I just remember one of my tasks was going through different vendors of people who did something similar to that. So this was like 2019, 2020, like right before the pandemic started. So yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about that you kind of disrupted that in the New York market. And yeah, there were probably so many companies that sprung up because of that. So
I will say, I'm not going to name the company, but there is a company that has these digital billboards all around the city that has a very similar name to Snaplistings. And I'm just like, all the naysayers, like, look at it now, you know?
Whenever it got acquired, great. I hope you had a piece of that, like as co-founder.
Yes, of course. Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, that was great because that's actually what led me. So after HBO, I then went to YouTube. I got a job at YouTube where I was running their brand social. So like the @YouTube handles across all social platforms. And it wasn't for me, the job. I was there for 6 months, and I quickly realized like it was not a good fit, and I left. And the plan was to move to LA. Like I had been in New York City my whole life. I was like, I got to go out to LA. Like I want to try something new. And I didn't have a job. And what I did have was this chunk of cash that I had made from Snaplistings, where I had the ability to like move myself to Los Angeles and just like see what I could do and freelance and try. So when I went to LA, like I said, like I was just looking for freelance work, and there really was no plan other than that. And it was really such an incredible time in my life where I was really able to create without any like boundaries or without any other kind of work related responsibilities. And LA is such a conducive environment to creative people, and the sun is always shining, and you want to be outside. And, that's why creatives are there. Like everyone's making something, and everyone's trying to make it and to do something. So it really does, like, you're able to harness this energy that like is very rare in other kind of parts of the country. But while I was there, like I started to, I'd wake up and be like, all right, what should I do today? Like, I'm going to make a video. And I would make a video, and I would have a camera, and I had a friend who would come film me with my microphone, and we would make these videos around Venice and on this popular hike called Runyon Canyon, and just all these fun, and the Pink Wall. Do you know the Pink Wall?
No.
It's just like this. It's so Instagram. It's just like a pink wall. It's a pink wall in Los Angeles that people come from all over the world just to take a photo in front of.
That's
and like
funny.
I interview people at the pink wall, like, stuff like that. So that was really fun. But while I was there, COVID happened, and nobody was hiring freelancers when COVID happened. I had only been in LA for like 5-6 months when COVID happened, and I didn't find really any work by then. I think I had one client at that point. And COVID happened. I was like, well, I'm definitely not going to find work anymore. What do I do? So I was like, all right, 2 weeks. We all thought that this was going to last 2 weeks. And I was like, all right, everyone's making bread. So I was like,
yeah, that was a thing. Yeah.
It
like,
was totally a
black
thing.
market toilet paper.
Everyone would be talking about
You
it.
do both. Like here.
It was like the sourdough era of COVID. And I was like, wait, I want to,
like sourdough's pretty
It's good.
fire.
It's fire. Yeah.
it's so good. But I was like, wait, I want to try. Like, I have nothing to do. I've got to pass the time. Like, I want to try. And when I looked at a recipe, I was like, there's no way I'm doing this. This is like out of my wheelhouse. I'm not a baker. I'm not a cook. Like, I cannot do this. I don't know if you've ever looked at a recipe for sourdough. It's hard.
I've not made sourdough. I made other homemade bread, but not sourdough.
Well, there's this thing called a starter, which is like, do you know what a starter is?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's that. I was like, there's no way I'm doing this. You basically have to like grow yeast out of your home and feed it and like take care of it. And I've killed every plant that I've ever had. So I was like, I can't do that. But I was like, challah bread. Like, I could try challah bread. Like, kids make that. So I was like, I'm going to try a challah. So I looked up a recipe for a challah, much easier, but this was also yeast gate. Like, there was no yeast available in the world. And I had to like, truly, there was no yeast because everybody was making bread. And I remember I just documented me like going around Los Angeles looking for yeast. And I like, somebody sent me a tip on like DM being like, there's a bodega on Sunset that has yeast, like go. And I'm like, I'm there. And I went and I bought all the yeast and I started to make challah bread, and it came out, and it was like, I shocked myself. I was like, it's so beautiful. I can't believe it. And I posted it on my Instagram. And again, kind of like the Snaplistings example I gave, like people started to DM me and be like, hey, can I buy one? I was like, yeah, okay. I'm open for business for sure. So then I was like, wait a second, I'm a brand marketer. Like, I'm going to make a brand out of this. So I was like, all right, I'm going to call it Challah Dolly instead of Hello Dolly, because that was the name of my web series. And I'm going to start this little bread company out of my apartment in West Hollywood. And I started to bake, and people would come, they'd pick it up, and I would document everybody coming to pick it up, and I would put it online, and it became like this thing. And then nothing, it just like, it was a really great hobby for me, but it also like gave me this new kind of life of like, look, I can truly, and it really proved to me that like, I can tell, I know how to tell stories online, no matter what it is. It can be television, it can be real estate, it can be bread. Like, we can make content, you know? So that's how I started my next business called Challah Dolly. And also during COVID, I continued my web series, Hello Dolly, but I kind of flipped the format of it. Instead of going out on the street, I started to kind of, I mean, we were all inside, like thinking a lot. And I really looked internally, and I was like, what is important to me? What do I want to talk about online? Like, you know, I have the attention of so many people right now, and like, how can I use this attention for good? So I was like, I want to start having conversations with girls, women who have grown up in larger bodies and who have experienced like fat phobic experiences. And what has that been like, especially being indoors, where like all you have is to think about your body and like eat. Like, that was what everybody was doing. And there was like a lot of just like, you know, you really had to think about, you had to really like look in the mirror and think about it, you know, and like, take care of yourself, but
Yeah.
also what does taking care of yourself look like?
Yeah.
So I started to interview women and about, just like fat phobia and what it's been like inside and like what their experience has been in their life as a little girl growing up. And I had these very vulnerable conversations with plus size models, fashion professionals, actually my gender teacher from Indiana, who is like still one of the smartest people I know to this day. She's incredible, Jen Maher. And we were talking about like what that felt like. And it turned into this very deep and relatable content that I really had never, I was always doing like this comedy thing, and it just was so different than anything I had done. And it really resonated with people. And to me, it really tied in a lot with the challah, because it was like bread was something that I never really let myself eat or wanted to be around me. And like I had this whole new sense of perspective of like, bread is okay. And it's not, this devil. And I, like, how can I like enjoy things in my life and enjoy food, and especially being indoors all day. So like, that was kind of this new kind of turn in my, like, just personally that I went through. And the content, like, I can't even, the messages that I received and like these people who I've met through interviewing them, like it changed my life.
Yeah. I love that.
And were there commonalities between all these women, like dealing with plus size, like from any childhood commonalities,
Yes.
certain mindsets, any parental things? Like, what were
Yes.
some big common things that you saw that may have led to them being bigger people?
Sure. Well, what was crazy was that everybody's story was exactly the same. And when you grow up where like your whole life you're told that, you're fat or you need to lose weight, it's very isolating, and you really think that you're the only one going through this. And the biggest takeaway for me was that we all had the exact same story, and we all like just we hadn't found each other, and like we didn't know that we were all going through this. And what's been so incredible is like it's all over TikTok now, like girls talking about this all the time, and like girls in fat bodies who are like, what? This is crazy. Like, these brands don't make my size. I can't go shopping at Zara. And like, there's this one girl who does like hauls on Zara, and, she shows that nothing fits, but you would think that like their extra large size would fit, but like it doesn't. And she's not like huge, So just, it was really crazy how similar everyone's story was. And even like people's responses to the video, like on the comments on all of my videos are like, whoa, like this really resonated. This was my experience. Like, thank you so much. Like, it really opened my eyes, blah, blah, blah. So that was really interesting. But I mean, everything from, poor experiences shopping with their mothers when they were little and dressing room trauma, experiences with doctors when you like go in and you say you're like, you have a stomach ache or you have a headache, and the doctor is like, well, you should lose weight, and it's like,
right.
Well, that has nothing to do with it. And so that, and experiences dating, and love, and even friendships. And it was just we all had the exact same story, which was so crazy.
That's wild. Yeah. Interesting how you pivoted your storytelling into something that you said how funny it is that things work out the way they work out.
Yes.
And a year before that, you probably never thought that you were going to be doing that kind of content.
It was really scary for me to put that out because I never talked about that online. And it was just like in one video, like I'm fully crying, and like, it was just like crazy that it's just like COVID really changed my life. And I'm very blessed because it had a positive impact, even though there was so much like disaster and horribleness. And I can't even believe that like we've gotten through it. There were a lot of like aha moments that happened to me that I'm really so grateful for. And they never would have happened had COVID not happened.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked to a ton of people where like in horrible times like that, there is a lot of opportunity. like in recessions, there's opportunity there's
Totally.
always something that if you take advantage the right way, like Tim, you told me, who was it? I think it was P. Diddy that said, if COVID doesn't bring out the hustle in you, you ain't got it. And so I'm curious, let's say since 2019 and now 2019 into 2020, what is one of the biggest mindset shifts you've had with your storytelling and marketing since then? Like, how, I know your content has changed, but in terms of maybe the way you do things, approaches, what's one of the biggest shifts that you've had for your businesses?
That's interesting. Well, one thing that I always say to my clients, because, right, so just to wrap that all up, like now what I do is I freelance and I help brands and individuals and companies do social strategy and content ideation. And I still have my challah business that kind of like is this kind of running on its own situation at this point. But one thing that I always say is like, you just don't know what works until it works. And like, you really have to throw spaghetti at a wall and see what sticks. Otherwise, like, there's no way to know. And especially social media, which is this very like, you know, ephemeral platform where things work one week and don't work the next, like constantly just putting different stuff out. You just don't know what's going to stick.
Yeah. And that's one nice thing though, is like, that's fast feedback. Like the market is quick on social media.
Yeah.
And I hate going for likes or shares, things like that, but there are metrics. So like Tim and I will look at our Instagrams for our businesses and see, okay, this is your insights in the last 30 days, how many people you've reached, and a certain post might explode. And then you take time to do something else and just, it flops.
Totally.
So it's very fast feedback. So it's blessing and a curse. But if you follow data, then you can start to alter the way you tell stories and how you market. And
exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I just thought that was so cool about everything you mentioned is like you hinted it when you started the most recent radio show, the audience you had, like you have the audience, what can you do to provide value for them and be relatable? And the fact that you've built like your own personal audience for your own personal brand, all like starting from college, and you've done like different life experiences, but I'm sure in the meantime, you've gained people following like you as the person. What do you think has kept people stuck around you for so long? Like, why have the people that started following your personal story from the beginning, why are they still following you now, despite all the different things that you've done? Like anything that you've done consistently that has like made them follow you, I guess.
That's so interesting. I mean, I really don't have that big of a following, but like, I really feel like I have,
been consistent though. Yeah.
it's consistent. And it's also, like, strong. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not just like
You're loyal.
I have a loyal following.
Yeah. You have a cult. You can say, no, I'm just kidding.
No. It's
I'm
not a
kidding.
cult.
I know.
But I have like,
not Dave Matthews. What?
Yeah. I have like a loyal but small following of people who, you know, have come into my life in different, I guess, chapters. So it's like how I said, like, I've always been this person who's very like larger than life. You know, so I have my like childhood friends, and I have then going into college, like I was very much like this personality at school. And I was, like I said, like even the president of my sorority, and I was very involved in the Greek community, and I had this web series. And then like when I graduated, like I got this really cool job, and I was seeing things that people, you know, didn't have access to. And I feel like I'm somebody who really, or at least I like to think that I'm somebody who, doesn't take opportunities for granted and really like lives those experiences, who really, I guess, I immerse myself into those experiences to the fullest extent. I really want to feel whatever it is that I'm doing all the way, and like embrace it, and, you know, be all in on it. So I feel like perhaps that could be part of it, of like, you know, when I do something, I do it 110%, and like, I want to feel it, and I really want to do it all the way.
Yeah. I love that, because there's so many people out there too that like they have that feeling, but there's something, multitude of reasons that keep them from executing it and like taking that extra step. And I'm sure that there's been people that have watched you that you've inspired them to kind of take that extra step and immerse themselves in whatever they're thinking about starting or whatever. So
Yeah.
that's
I
good.
would hope, I hope. And, yeah, I don't know. Like, also think that I've had like these very distinct chapters in my life where I don't think everything is forever, right? Like I sometimes I feel a little bit, maybe, I don't know if it's disappointed in myself or like ashamed that like I can do something and then like it doesn't fit my life anymore. So it's like, okay, that doesn't really serve me anymore. What's the next thing?
Yeah.
And instead of like being ashamed or disappointing in myself that like, all right, this was a phase, like you're moving on to the next, like embracing that and being like, I'm a different person now. Like right now, there's COVID. Like I might not be doing the same stuff that I was doing last year because the circumstances have just completely changed and I've changed.
Right.
So now is a moment in my life where I want to like do this thing, and it might be different than something I've done in the past.
Yeah. I think that's healthy though. Like, yeah, no shame to it. I mean, from people to jobs, like you outgrow things. And it's
Exactly.
people that stick with the same, how miserable are they for 30, 40 years? Like from work to spouses, you see it all the time. Like when I was in corporate, everyone complained about their spouse, their everyday life. They like, and it was quick pleasures all the time just to escape for a little bit.
Right.
So I think that's super healthy that you're able to, all right, that doesn't serve me. Bye. Like you have to cut people loose sometimes. Or things, but I think with your content, and I hate to throw this word out, but it seems like you're very authentic.
Thank you.
Like you're, there's no front. What you see is what you get. You love doing radio shows, so you walk the streets and interview people. You love telling stories, so you do branding and like you do the things you want to do, and it works. Like there's no surprises, and I think people like that when they find someone who's not full of shit. Let's just put it,
I really appreciate that. And I do think that I am like a product of New York in that way of like very upfront and honest. And I wear my emotions on my sleeve and I can't hide those things. And like what you see is what you get.
Right. Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's one thing. New Yorkers, they'll tell it straight.
They will.
Yeah.
And, they get a bad rep for not being nice. I don't think that they're not nice. They're just honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Walking through the streets of New York, people get ornery.
Oh, okay. Well, I hope to change that about you one day, like your perception of that one day.
It has been a while since I've been out there, though. It's been a while.
I'm very like an ambassador of New York, where like whenever I see anybody like with a map, I'm like, I stop and I'm like, hi, where do you need to go? Like, what can I help you with?
The tour guide of New York.
Yes, because I want people to leave this place and love it.
Yeah.
It's weird. I'll follow. There's a couple like watch dealers that I'll follow. And on TikTok, I think, by the way, you'd blow up on TikTok. I think, and it's just a different way to get massive eyes.
Yeah.
Super quick.
Can I ask you, like, what you mean, like maybe the man on the street stuff, or maybe the interview stuff that I was doing? What do you think?
Like you're a brand, like you are your own brand, and so do all of it. So on our TikToks, like Tim said, he does a lot of interview, career coaching, resumes. Right. So he's always putting out good tips, like this is how you should job search, whatever. Right. Then I'll do nutrition things, but then we'll post podcast clips of our episodes with other people, and it's just, display your brand. What you do anyway, just add one more platform. I know it's a little more work, but I think with your type of content, especially when you start doing the, the more plus size things, I think that would also just, you become the hammer on TikTok.
Totally. I know. It's
we caved.
I just
we
don't
don't want to, but we caved because we had a guy on the show that he was super bullish.
Yeah.
And he's like, he goes, Instagram is super saturated. TikTok is still Wild West, and you can get an audience. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And people like think like, yeah, TikTok is more short form. People are scrolling through a lot of stuff, but like you could still put videos on there that are like a minute and a half, 2 minute for a post. So like, I mean, it's kind of it's your brand, obviously. So if someone like you ask someone a question on the street and they have like a really relatable, authentic response, you can get that question and answer in like one video, or
Mhm.
yeah, so many different things you can do. Yeah.
And like you interview other characters in New York. Like I follow this one, Moses the jeweler, and
Uh-huh.
he's such a character. Like he's animated. He's supposed to be on the internet. And you link up with like a few people like that are just super
Sure.
charismatic. You do your interview thing, and I mean, yeah.
It's so funny because I do some of it in a very like different way that I ever had before. Like I
Mhm.
find people, like there's this one woman, for example, who like looked so fab. She was just walking on the street. I was like, you are electric, like your energy, I can just feel it. And I was like, can I take your video? And I was just like, tell me what you're wearing. Like you look incredible. Where are you going? Like it was like a Tuesday at 5 o'clock. She had nowhere to go and she looked incredible. And it was just like, that video blew up and people love that stuff. Totally. But
Hey, save some men for the rest of us.
so I agree. I do agree. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, now I feel like Jose just pushing TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're spreading the love. Yeah. But I mean, it's one of those things, and Gary Vee talks about this, is like, if one platform or app, if it just stops existing for a day, like that audience has to go somewhere.
Right.
So it's all about like, who do you want to reach, where are they hanging out? Because they're hanging out somewhere online. So
Yeah.
you can still link your things. I see people with link trees all the time in TikTok.
Totally.
So, send them to Instagram if you want. There's a whole link for it.
Oh yeah, I have it. Don't worry. I got that all set up.
Cool. Yeah. All right, next subject. We're done here. That's cool.
Yeah. So that's the situation.
When did you move back to New York?
Yes. Okay. So what I was doing, the challah like also took on this life that I really was not expecting of its own, where like when I was in LA making the challah, I came back to New York City in July 2020. After like, I guess 3 months of COVID, 3-4 months of COVID. And I was just like, the reason I came back was because I was like, what am I doing? I can't even leave my apartment. And I was living with a friend of mine from high school. And I was just like, I can't even see LA. Like, why am I here? I was like, I'd rather be home closer to my family and just like stay inside until I can come out there. Right. So I came back to New York. And when I came back, that was when the challah Dolly, like really kind of happened. So I came back and people were like, oh my God, you're back in New York. Like, when can I get a challah? And I really had no intention of bringing it here. And I was like, I guess I'm doing it here now. So I started to bake out of my apartment in New York City, and people would come and pick it up. And it was crazy. Like, it was crazy. I had wait lists. It was me waking up at 5 a.m. using my one oven. Like it was crazy. And then at one point, Time Out New York had heard about what I was doing. And again, like very perfect storm. Like, this story would not have happened had it not been for COVID, and like, there were a lot of really interesting, like small businesses that started this way during COVID. And, Time Out New York had written this article about me. And when that happened, I really was like, oh no, like I need to leave my house because
I need 2 ovens.
Yeah. I was like, this is, I can't have a bake sale out of my house. That's public. Like that is not okay. So I was like, I need to go find somewhere to bake. So I reached out to this bakery on the Lower East Side. And exactly like you said, like, I was like, the restaurant industry also had been hit so hard, the food industry. So I was like, you need business and I need ovens. Like, let's team up. So what we did was we had a pop-up, and her team and we baked 100 loaves of challah, and we sold out for the end of the day. And we were like, whoa, like we have something here. Like, let's do this. So then we started to do monthly pop-ups. And then from there, I was like, wait, I want to do wholesale. So then she would bake for me for wholesale, and I would get in an Uber and I would deliver challahs around the city to different grocery stores. And then the New Yorker wrote an article, and I was like, this is insane. Like, how is this happening?
Baking some bread.
It was so crazy, but it was like all through social media. And like, and then Forbes wrote a profile on me, and I
Oh,
was
wow.
like, this is just crazy, like what the power of the internet can do if you can use it in the right way.
Mhm.
And then I moved out of her space and I moved into a larger kitchen, and I now, have I work with a big wholesale bakery, and I have a distributor, and we sell to a bunch of stores around the city, and I ship nationwide, and it's like grown into this little small business. And it just, no, I would have never, I couldn't, if you told me like 5 years ago that this is what I
Yeah.
would be doing, I'd be like, you're lying to my face. I can't believe it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that
Do
what you
you-
asked me? I don't even remember.
Neither do I, but this is the show. It's
No,
off
that
the
was
dome
good.
radio. So
Well,
Okay.
we go where we have to go.
What
Yeah.
my question is, yeah, I'm sure. Like, do you have different flavors of it? I'm really not familiar. Like what?
Sure.
Because
Let me tell you.
or like what do you think has made it stick so much too, as well?
Definitely.
Like,
So
how's it become so popular?
Sure. So challah bread is this Jewish bread. It's braided. And why did it well, mine is really good. I think that
Yeah,
is
yeah.
really that's important. Like
Yeah.
it
Boxes
has
checked.
to be, your product has to be good in order for it to, work.
Yeah.
So it's really good, but it's so funny because my roommate from Los Angeles, my friend from high school, I called her my recipe developer because she was like, you should put everything seasoning on this, like everything seeds. And I was like, okay. So then we started to do an everything seed one. She's like, you should do like honey and cinnamon sugar. I was like, that sounds delicious. Okay. And I started to make these different flavors. And that was really when like it was that was unique. Like people didn't have these flavored challahs. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I also like never grew up religious. So this whole like Jewish food scene is very new to me. But it's been really nice to embrace that part of me that I had never like nurtured in my life before or really thought anything about. So that's been a really big kind of revelation for me too, is like who the people I've met, the stories that people have about like, baking challah with their grandmothers, and about like, memories very much so attached to like Friday night Shabbat dinners with challah and like what that means. And it's very like community driven, and challah is like such an inviting food where it's very indulgent, and it's, typically not for the everyday, but like my whole thing is like, eat it every day. It's so good. And, it's like, it's from like, it's centuries old, but how do we give it this like new breath of life and this modern spin on it? And that's been really empowering for me to embrace.
That's cool.
I love it.
Now, would you be able to do like a monkey or sticky type bread with challah, like a dessert bread? Like, oh, this is for an appetizer. This is an entree bread. This is a charcuterie bread.
Yes, totally. Well, I sometimes show on my Instagram like different ways that you can use it, but like it's really good to use for French toast. It's really good to use for bread puddings, and it's really good to use on I had a friend who like put it on a charcuterie board, and it was so beautiful. So it can be very versatile, even though it's not normally thought of that way. But I have 4 SKUs, and it's so hard to bring in seasonal flavors or introduce new products when you are manufacturing on like not on a teeny tiny scale of like an artisanal bakery, for example, like that can kind of have more variety. Because when you create a new SKU in your product line, like think about what has to go into that. You need to now source new ingredients. You need to create new labels. You need to, get nutrition facts. You need to get people to buy it. And all of those things, like, it's just, I'm not at a stage where I'm able to do that.
Yeah. Fair.
So I have my like 4 core that's what I have.
Yeah. Nice. Nice. So what's the ultimate goal with your storytelling, the marketing business? If you don't have one yet, that's fine. But what's at least next? Like, what are you trying to push towards? What's your next milestone you're trying to hit with the business?
Wow, these are the hard questions.
Welcome to the show, Dolly. Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
This major leagues out here.
You know, it's really funny because I think during COVID, I also had this big attitude shift of like, you know, I don't have a crystal ball and I can't predict the future. Like, no one expected COVID to happen and no one expected everything that would happen because of COVID. And no one could control the feelings that they were feeling during COVID or like their life circumstances.
Right.
And I have now, like, I'm a pretty type A person where I'm very organized and like, I'm always like, you know, wake up and I want to be productive and like I have to-do lists and I'm just that. And I've also like embraced that part of me. Whereas before I'm like, why am I so high strung? But I'm like, all right, that's who I am.
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, I've been able to kind of like relax a little bit, and not and realize that I don't have to have all the answers all the time, because like I said to you before, like I would have never expected that I would have a challah bread business at this point, like in my ever in my life. And I would have never expected that I would have put videos of me crying about what life was like growing up in a bigger body on the internet. And like, I don't know what's next because I have to feel it. And everything is truly like a feeling and like following like this, you know, following a gut feeling that you have and like really leaning into that and doing what feels right at that moment in time. And like I said too, you know, I think that there are different chapters or there are different things that serve you at different points in your life. So it's like, I don't know what I want in 5 years because I don't know what my life is going to look like in 5 years, but like I can tell you that, you know, in the next year, I really am like craving a little bit more stability in my life. I have been so go for the last 3.5 years, and hustling to like make these little projects turn into something. And I'm just like finally realizing all of the work that I've done, because sometimes when you're doing stuff, you're like very much like, you know, you have blinders on and you can't really see the big picture and you're always like looking down, doing the work. But like, I feel like since COVID, you know, has kind of subsided, like I've been able to be like, all right, let me evaluate what my life looks like right now and what do I want to do. And I really am I'm craving stability.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that looks
That's
like.
good awareness though.
Yeah. Because you have done so much in the last, like you said, 3.5 years and you've been leading up. And it's amazing, like once you take time to like take a deep breath, live in the present moment, how much life slows down for a second for you. And yeah, I get what you're talking about. Like you hold yourself to a standard and you do so much. And sometimes it's tough to like really sit back and think about what you've done to get up to this point. Yeah. So worried about the future. Yeah. So yeah,
I appreciate it. But yeah, I like really am like, whoa, like I feel like I just like woke up in 3.5 years, just like flew by. And there were things that I did that I don't even think that I processed. So I just like am kind of looking to like think about all of that and figure out what is the next thing. So I don't know what is next, but I do think it's like something a little bit more with a little bit more stability where I can feel a little bit more grounded.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good. I love that.
Dolly, we've gone through a lot.
Yes.
Good. I knew we always have questions, but I know the conversation always just goes naturally. Like we just kind of hit everything naturally. So I thought it's been a good conversation so far.
Tim, any other questions for Dolly before we kind of wrap things up a little bit?
I would just say one more question I had, and I know you hit on it. You said like social media is constantly changing. One thing may work this week, one thing wouldn't work next week. You've worked with a lot of different brands. You've done a lot of brand storytelling. No matter what happens with trends and everything, like what do all like successful brands have in common for you? Like what are some of the timeless things that you've noticed, whether it's 2023, whether it's 2017, like what characteristics do brands have that make them stick?
Okay. Great question. I think that this is something that I really learned at HBO is how important communities are. like when you really step back and look at what does social media mean at HBO for a franchise like Game of Thrones, really what is that job? And it's really feeding a community. It's, Game of Thrones fans are rampant and they are loud and they want what they want, and how do you foster that community and be like be like a positive experience for that community, because they're, and this almost like social media is so interesting because it doesn't get no matter how high level you are in a company, there's nothing closer to the consumer than social media. Like you are truly in the palm of their hands and you are speaking to them one-to-one, where you don't have that opportunity anywhere else. So if you can think about it, like, how am I talking to this community of people? I think that that's really helpful. So like what I was saying, I mentioned that I freelance. So like I've had these great freelance experiences with, brands like Netflix or Tribeca Film Festival, or I worked with Lena Dunham, who I don't know if you know who she is. That's so funny because you're boys. But have you ever heard of the show Girls on HBO?
Nope.
Okay. How old are you?
28.
Yeah, 28, 29.
Okay, that is shocking to me. You guys,
I don't watch a lot of TV.
Yeah, not a lot of HBO.
I'm a live sports person. We're
Okay.
different consumers.
Okay. Well,
I can't sit and watch a lot of shows just and do nothing. I have a
Sure,
problem just
okay.
sitting. Yeah.
well, I bet you if you ask any other millennial girl if she's watched Girls, she has watched Girls. Anyway, it's Lena
I
Dunham.
believe you.
It's
Okay.
Lena Dunham's TV show.
Okay.
And I work with her, and I've worked with like smaller brands too, like a Black owned skincare company. And I've worked with who else? Oh my God, like a fashion company. And we just had a show for New York Fashion Week. So the range is quite wide, and like I was explaining before, of like, I've had this experience of working in entertainment, real estate, food, but there is like this through line through it all. And through my experiences of working with these people and brands and communities, or people, brands, and companies, I learned that the best way to speak with these people is to tailor the conversation to the community. That is really like who you are talking to and who you are serving, and that's who wants to hear you.
Yeah. Makes sense.
I love
Makes
that.
a lot of sense. Dolly, anything else you want to touch on before? So we always have a final question we ask everybody. So regardless where we go, we always have one. But anything else that you want to hit on, say something we didn't get to?
God, it was so thorough. I really I feel like we talked about every possible thing.
We covered a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. Yeah.
And I hope I wasn't rambling or
No, this is about you.
Okay.
We
cool.
want rambling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've had some where we got to like extract information.
Sure.
And it's painful to go back and re-listen to. We don't have a lot of those. We had maybe one or two in like year 2 or 3. So we don't have it anymore, but
yours has been good. Yeah. The best podcast interviews are the ones that have the most unique stories. And this interview had a lot of unique stories. Yeah. So I think it was really,
I appreciate it.
You have so much we can work with. So it's just give and take. It's nice.
I appreciate it.
So do
good. We. My last thing that I would say is, I mean, this is what I tell anyone who is always like, anyone who asks me for advice, I always just say, like, truly, you just have to do it. Like Nike swoosh, just do it, is truly like the best motto in life to live by, because you can do truly anything that you want if you just do the thing. And it might not, I also, a lot of people are always like, well, I've created this web series or this podcast, and like, I just don't think it's right yet. And I'm like, it's never going to be right, ever. Do it, put it out into the world, because version 2 can never be what it is without version 1. Right. And it's always evolving. So once you just do the thing, it turns into something else. And I don't know, that's my best piece of advice. And like one thing I try to remember at all times is like, all right, I say I want to do this thing, like, do it. And who knows what it'll turn into.
Yeah. It's working for you.
I don't, it's just crazy. Like, I don't think I'd have a challah company if I didn't have my Hello Dolly web series at Indiana University. Like, it wouldn't have happened. So you just do it.
Yeah.
Right.
So right.
Yeah. All right. So our last tough question for you.
Okay.
This one's coming. That was in the list.
You know what? I don't remember it.
All right. Well, so we do have a written exam. We'll send you via email.
Yes. Okay.
So like within 48 hours.
Oh no.
By
okay.
11:59. No, I'm just kidding. So we always like to know when, your time here is done. How do you want people to remember you?
Okay.
And the way, Tim, do you want to add your?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
A different version of a question.
Okay.
Then we ask if we do a round 2, we have a different question.
Oh,
kind of a follow-up question, but this is our question.
Round. Yeah.
Okay.
So, how do you want people to remember you?
Okay. I want people to remember that I want people to remember the energy and I want people to remember the energy that I put into things and what that feels like. Like, when I commit to something, I commit. And when I feel passionately about something, I'm going to feel really passionately about it. And I just want people to remember me as like somebody who gave it their all whenever, there was a task at hand, or whenever I had an idea, and I'm just that person who gets it done and is excited to learn and do the thing along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Love it. Immerse yourself.
Yeah.
I love it.
Love it.
Yeah.
You described it well before. Whenever you do anything, you go all in. So
what is that from?
No, you said earlier in the interview how when you did your ventures, you got fully immersed in it. So that's perfectly putting a bow on it.
I'm really not good at faking stuff. Like, I just, if I'm not into it, like,
that's
even
good.
like that, I guess like that job at YouTube, I was there for 6 months. I was like, this is not going to work. I got to go.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you guys so much. It was so nice to meet you.
Thank you. Likewise. Likewise. A lot of fun. Yeah. So, like Tim said, we'll get an intro on it and probably have a week or two, have it toured.
Yeah. By the end you should have it by the end of the next week, the version of it.
Okay.
We'll go from there.
We cut videos and stuff, and we'll send you a drive so you can access like clips and stuff, whatever you want, and use them however you want to too.
Okay, sounds good.
So
Thank you.
One ends up on TikTok,
Right. I'll give it a like. I'll engage. I'll engage with the post.
Welcome to our community.
I love it. Perfect.
Hey, awesome.
Thank you guys. Great to meet you.
Yeah. Have a great rest of your day.
Right. Okay. Talk later. Bye.
Bye.